Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
Good morning. How are we today? Welcome to Revolution. What a weird week. Oh, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. See, I'm doing it now. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out here at the Revolution gathering to have your likes and your subscribes. So please do that. Like and subscribe and follow us and turn on the warnings or whatever, so to let you know when we get on and we start. So it's been great. Also, if you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes or anything else and you really like what you hear, do us a huge favor and leave us a 5-star review. That would really help. 5 stars. Hello. Well, there's my friend the hippie Christian. Peace, man. Good morning. I've realized that now the 90s are like the 60s were to, like the 90s now are like the 60s were to us kids in the 90s. So I'm going around telling everybody about the good old days. And still don't take the brown acid. So what's really been crazy is we've had so much happen with presidential election and all that kind of stuff. And it's just maddening and crazy. And I don't know how we're all keeping sane, but we're doing it. We're doing it. And then this weird Olympics thing happens, and it's like Christians being offended by Christians who are offended by Christians who are offended because someone's not offended or because they are offended, or people being offended because they are offended or aren't offended. And it's all about being offended one way or the other, and how we can point out how ridiculous we are to each other. And so always a great time for Christians when we look like jackasses and then realize that even the picture they were depicting wasn't even really supposed to be the Last Supper. It was some other religious thing, but we're all in America not down with our Greek mythology, so we get offended easily, and then we offend each other. And oh man, humans, we are a ridiculous bunch of people. You know, we are such a ridiculous bunch of people. Anyway, so we love to grasp our pearls any chance we get. If it's because we're offended or because we're offended that other people were offended, we like to go, you know. And I think of those memes where it's like Jesus really worn out smoking a cigarette and looking down and just shaking his head. Like that meme kind of goes when I see all the different responses, and I'm like, wow, everybody really made a week out of this. And here I am responding about it, but I'm just responding about it because I can't help. It's just been in my face too many times. Well, thanks for being here. Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe or leave us a review wherever you listen to us or watch us. That is always helpful to get the word out there and get stuff out there. Sometimes my kids watch these weird YouTube videos, and it'll be like, if you love God, leave a comment. If you don't love God, don't leave a comment. Or if you love God, like and subscribe. If you don't love God, or it'll say the parents, if you love your parents, like and subscribe. If you don't love your parents, don't like and subscribe. So that's what I'm really saying is you know, if you love God and peace and stuff, like and subscribe. If you don't, then don't. No, I hate that stuff. It drives me crazy, but I do know that that's how we get into the metaverse or whatever it's called. Our overlords give us, if we get likes, the overlords give us treats and show us to more people. So yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. Play to the algorithms. So last night, one of my kids came and said, Dad, I don't feel good. Can I sleep with you? I was like, sure. And then my son, after my daughter came in, then my son came in and said, Dad, I don't want to be alone. Can I sleep with you guys? And I was like, oh, we're glad you're late, because if you're late, you're a Revolution gathering. If you're not here at all, you're part of Revolution gathering. That's the MO. I would be late, and sometimes I have been late, but if this wasn't my job, I might not even be here. But we're glad you're here. We are very glad you're here. I'm grateful for you, because there is no Revolution gathering without you. This is your place to get together and for us to talk about weird conversations and weird things. And don't worry, I'll remind you to like and subscribe. I'll become crazy like that until podcast listeners start complaining about it. Bound to happen. Yeah, so my kids came in late. I couldn't sleep, so I was like, well, I'll just, I have this medication that I can take to help make me rest sometimes, and so I took one of these little pills, and now I feel like I'm a zombie. But don't worry, I've had enough Diet Cokes to keep me going, so I might be speaking faster than normal. I don't know when I'm on the Diet Coke train. But we're going to be in Matthew today. So a new friend of mine they did a sermon, and they sent it to me, and I have to believe that this is why this verse is in my head. And they asked me to take a look at it and tell me what to think. And I mean, that's like such a huge thing, is when another speaker or pastor says, hey, I did this talk, and could you give me feedback? And I'm like, why? I was surprised anybody would want feedback from me on public speaking. And but man, it meant a lot. It was really cool. And we got to talk about things. We got to talk about Paul Tillich and some of those ideas and some of the stuff, and work through the talk. And then I got to see the talk. And so I'm sure this is why this first verse was on my mind. So I still see you guys are all greeting each other. So please greet each other through this. Say hello, talk to each other. We love that. So Matthew, we are in Matthew. And this is not just the easiest one to start out with. I guess you just read it and we jump right into it. But we're in Matthew 7 and 7:6. 7:6. So we talk a lot about, what we talk about here. If you're brand new, we talk a lot about arguing well and disagreeing well. And that doesn't always work. So today's your lucky day. Galatians. Wow, that's a weird Freudian slip. Matthew 7:6. Do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before swine, or they will trample them underfoot and turn and maul you. Those are some pretty scary pigs. I guess those are the pigs that were like the ones that were in that sequel to Silence of the Lambs. The people eating pigs, or in mob movies, like, get yourself some pigs. That must be these pigs. One of the things I'm just going to go right out and say that makes me a little bit nervous is that one time when the Gentile woman was at the table and she was like, help us. And he's like, does the master give to the dogs what's for the people? And then he goes, and then she's like, Master, even dogs eat the crumbs from the table. And he's like, your faith has made you whole. So I hope this isn't Jesus doing the slightly like racist thing to the Gentiles that he did before he seemed to come around a little bit more to us Gentiles. I know it's not fun to talk about, but it's just the reality of how the Bible is and the times they were living in, and shows that Jesus was a human being too. I'm sure we can figure out other ways to explain that verse away. But, so I hope that's not happening here. And I don't think that's what's happening here, but I think Jesus is making a very particular point here for us. And you can kind of tell what's going on with all the verses around. You have the plank eye one and here, ask and you'll be given, don't worry about what you need, the narrow gate, the golden rule. You've got all these kind of really powerful ones with this guy in the middle. And, all the stuff about concerning treasures, concerning fasting, your eyes, serving two masters. It's all, Jesus kind of giving us these ideas, these little leads. But I think what's good about this, do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before swine, or they will trample them underfoot and turn and maul you. I don't know if you guys saw it, but like a week or two ago, I kind of had my Apostle Paul moment where I kind of reminded people of my past. I did a little video on Instagram and I talked about, and I put it up on YouTube. It's here on YouTube as well, and Facebook. I try to put those everywhere I can. Now I'm doing little vignettes during the week, so please check those out. But I did a little bit of like, hey, I went through this as a kid. This is what happened to me. This is the scars that I bear on my body for not necessarily being a Christ follower, but for being a baker and being a part of a family that was internationally kind of canceled and ridiculed at one time. And I felt like I just needed to put it out there. Like sometimes you have to be like, hey, this is why I do this work. You know, reminding people why you do the work you do, why you say, because I think sometimes people think like, oh, he thinks the rules don't apply to him, or oh, what's this deal with all this, you know, argue well and stuff. And you're just, you know, this, you know, you'll say white, heterosexual, cis male guy, blah, blah, blah. You know, you have no experience, you know, and so you have to be like, okay, wait a second. The people, all human beings have nuances. So I sometimes have to bring up my own nuances. Like it feels ridiculous, but at the same time, you sometimes have to remind people why you do the work you do. And so I was going, hey, you know, I was devastated and went through a lot as a child, and that's why I talk about this stuff. And I think it's important because I don't want to see other people deal with similar things in their lives. And I don't want to see the church continue to be the only army that kills its wounded. You know, we want to get away from that. We're wanting to accept each other, love each other, disagree well. But, you know, there were people that I felt like, a couple people who really give me a hard time, leaders that really don't like my work, that I wanted to send it to, you know, like passive aggressively, like, oh, let me just throw that into your DMs. But I listened to my friends talk, and then this verse kept coming to me. It's like, you know, I think we see this sometimes in relationships, sometimes in romantic relationships or in friendships, is where we really want someone to be something else. We really want someone to respond in a more sensitive way, in a more loving way, in a more graceful way, or just like, give me a hug, you know, don't try to fix it, or someone who's going to try to fix it, you know. But we often put that on a person who can't do that. And we kind of we'll play this out over and over again with people like that. And we'll go back to them and think, well, maybe this will be the moment where they really get the compassion. Maybe the compassion button will really click in right now. You know, maybe they'll save me from all this right now. You know, and you put these unrealistic expectations. And it's like you're insane because you keep doing the same thing over and over again and knowing what's going to happen, and it always happens. And so I see that as this kind of don't giving what good what to dogs or the pearl to swine kind of idea. And I knew that there were people that no matter what my sob story was or my life experiences or where I've been or what I've been through, they're just at the point where they can't hear it. Like either their hearts are hardened, they're just so angry, or they're just so convinced that they're correct, that they're just so convinced that they're right and that this is how life works. And there's nothing I can say that can change that. And so there are those times where you have to go, this is not the place to do it. This is not, I can't give this, I can't throw these pearls to swine because it's going to eventually kill me. I can't, like there's something in me that says I need to be approved by these people. And guess what, Jay? It's called radical acceptance. Look into it. They're never going to accept you. You know, this isn't going to change their mind. This is only going to, whatever they've projected onto you, an image they've given you, it's only going to probably just seal that a little bit more, like, oh, poor little rich kid, poor little famous kids, parents of famous people. So you just kind of have to go like, all right. And so why I say this is because we talk a lot about arguing well and disagreeing well. But I don't want anybody to get the idea where it's this idea where you have to do it until you're blue in the face. I think there's times that kind of thing is important when you're dealing with like structures or government or systems and you're doing nonviolence resistance and type of things like that. I think that it's very, very vital and important that that we are consistent with that. But sometimes with individual relationships and people like that, you're going to know that like that's going to happen. And there's other ones you're just going to continue to repeat. Like with my dad, I continue to repeat it. You know, like I can't even get a hold of my dad. I leave messages for my dad with people, all the people around him, even me and my brother. He's my stepbrother. He's from my dad's wife's side, but my brother even he's like, we talk, but we still can't get contact with, I threw him through dad. Like, it's just, that's frustrating. And I keep hoping something different, you know, and then the times that we do talk, we end up talking, you know, like, let's not talk about politics or theology, but we both think about those things all the time, and we're very similar in that way. And so it always ends up there. But what I have to get to the point is where you realize, like, let's just have the different relation. This isn't going to work within this relationship. If I bring out these pearls, if I bring out these things, he's just going to trample on them, or I'm going to trample on his stuff, and you have to get to that. And then there's some people who are just going to always tear you down to a point where you do have to kind of go like, all right, this isn't going to work. This doesn't work anymore. Like, there is no arguing well here. You know, there is going to, like, we can't, we've tried to disagree well, and it hurts every time. And so that's when it's time to say, okay, we need to move on. It's not always going to work. And this isn't giving up, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. But I think when our words continuously fall on deaf ears, you know, we have to figure out another way to do it, and especially when it's destructive and it hurts us. Now, the thing is, I don't want to use this with broad strokes, because for me, this is a very small group of people that I would think of. So I really think of this as very things to individual relationships. I don't think of this as with groups or with tribes, or like, that's why I don't talk to conservatives, you know, or that's why I don't talk to evangelicals. Like, that's a broad stroke, and that's like missing nuance, and that's like, oh, no. You can't just, that whole group, because that's judging, and that's legalism. And it's judging people based on faith or race or image or religion, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's just broad strokes. And broad strokes like of judgment drive me insane. I don't think it's productive. I don't think it helps. And I just think it continues to build up more prejudice in our system and more divides. So when I say that don't throw pearl to swine, I'm saying there are going to be particular people that you're just unable to talk to. And you know what? They might not be someone on the other side. They might be someone that you agree with. It might be someone you work with. I think we've all had people where we've just been like, I can't believe like how horrible I feel after I have a conversation with this person. So for me, you know, there was like a couple people, 2 or 3 people that I wanted to like really like, you need to hear this. And I knew that that wasn't going to change anything. So I didn't do it. And you know what? I got a really encouraging messages from so many people. You know, even though I felt like it was a weird thing to do, it just felt like it was necessary at the time for the work and where I am in my own work. And it was really encouraging to hear. So I think that's what it's saying is, you know, sometimes you can't do that. Now, when I was thinking about this, you know, I often think, especially now because of the political system and how divided we are, that, you know, so many of us, it feels like we're in the trenches, you know, but we don't trust anybody around us. You know, like, oh, what do you think? Oh, well, why don't you tell me what you think first, you know, and we're all like, down. You're like, well, I'm afraid to tell you what I think because you might attack me. Well, we're having to make a peace accords with each other, like with our own friends and family. It's very frustrating. But if you go over to Matthew 10, I think it's interesting. It really helps us here, all of us, and all of them. In Matthew 10, which I just passed, Jesus sends the 12 out to do out on mission to go speak to people. But one of the things Jesus says to his disciples as he's sending people out to talk to other people, and it's really queer. Queer, I guess, would be strange or different. These 12 Jesus sent out to go the following instructions: go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So that already starts out a little bit like insider stuff. We obviously see that change, and we see that especially change with the Apostle Paul, but we also see that change with Jesus, where he has to go through Samaria and talk to the Samaritan woman. and the woman at the well. So we get a really good thing there. But it's interesting to watch how Jesus works within the Jewish tradition, and then just very slowly reaches out to us Gentiles. But at the end, he says this: if anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your own feet and leave that house or town. And the following verse really troubles me a bit, but I'll read it anyway, because why avoid something? Why not tell you the complete truth? It says, truly I tell you that it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than on the day of judgment than for that town. Okay, bit harsh. Just like, don't worry, if they don't like what you say, I'll kick their ass for you. We'll look at that a little bit deeper another day. But what I'm saying here is that sometimes you have to realize, like, this is not a place where I need to, this is not, people aren't hearing me, this communication isn't working. And when you come to that realization and you've tried, it's good to know that it hurts you more. It might make you more angry. It might make you hard-hearted, that it's time to dust off your feet and go and move on. And trust God to smote him. No, not to smote him. No, but just, hey, this is not where I'm at. This is not where I'm supposed to be. And thank goodness we all play different parts. I love that verse in the Bible where it says we're all different parts of the bodies and we all serve different reasons. Because it's so easy to get frustrated when people don't do the thing that you're called to do. But there's a reminder that these people do different things. And for Revolution, we've always been the people who are kind of like reaching out to people who fell through the cracks, the individuals who couldn't be put into a group or a tribe or things like that. The individual people who are strongly individuals who slipped through cracks, and we're like down at the bottom of the table, like, hi, welcome to Revolution. I see you came through the crack. Let's have a chat. But you never know if another day will come. And that's one of the things I've realized in 30 years of doing this work, is that through tough disagreements, even to the point where I thought this person will hate me for the rest of my life, and even secretly in my mind going like, and I hope I never see this person again. I mean, I've had people stand up in front of hundreds of people and rebuke me in the name of Jesus and read me the riot act and tell me why I was going to hell. And then years later write me letters saying, hey, I'm sorry that I did that. And now I understand what you're trying to say, but I just wasn't in that place. And I've seen that countless amount of times. I've seen a lot of people leave Revolution and come back different human beings, different people, that they needed to go out and experience more life, that they needed to go out and experience more legalism, or they needed to go out and do their own thing. And so that's why, I learned early on that you can't put your worth in who stays and who doesn't stay, because everybody's individual. Everybody has nuances. Everybody's going through their own journey. And just be glad, and sometimes just be grateful that you got to be in those little parts of their journey. And really I celebrate when I get to see them come back and be in part of their journey again and have these types of these kind of like second and third and fourth chances. Just, they're crucial for both parties, for everybody involved. And even when I talked to my psychiatrist, he talked about boundaries, but he's like, what I see with Jay, with you and your boundaries, and I think you need to continue to do this, is you always put a window or a door. There's always room for people to come back into your life. And he's like, stick with that. And so that's how I always see, like, hey, I've got a boundary here, but there's a door. If you knock, I will open it. Matter of fact, it was unlocked. Because I'm a recovering people pleaser. But yeah, so that's vitally important to know. And so that's just realizing timing and how we work. And I've always told people when we were meeting in Brooklyn and stuff, I'm like, listen, if this church isn't for you and you want a church in a bar, guess what? There is another church like that does music, has worship, is more, more customary of a church, but still meets in a bar that's like 5 blocks down the street. It's a great place. They're great people, great place to go. I want people to feel where they fit in, and I want people to find where they need to be on their journey. I don't want to be someone stuck with me when they're not, I had a friend of mine who has worked for me for a while back in Atlanta. And they left for a bit and we started working with this other church. And I'll be honest with you, I was really jealous of this other church because they had like a sweet, sweet coffee shop in their church. All the cool kids went there, and as a leader, I was like, well, the cool kids go there. I was a bit insecure, I'm not going to lie. But this guy who worked for me, he was gay, and he had always been like struggling with his sexuality. And this was before I had come out as affirming, but I always just said, listen, man, if you want to be gay, that's okay. If you don't want to be gay, that's okay. Like, I love you. I want you to work with me. He ended up going and working at this cool church. But he called me and said, hey, I'm coming out. And I said, wow, congratulations. And this was after I'd come out as affirming and an ally and all this stuff. I said, that's fantastic. And he said, but listen, as I volunteer and work with this church over here, and I really love this community. And I'm like, of course you do. And he goes, but I feel like I have to leave my truth and I have to tell them the truth. And I said, okay. And he said, will you meet with the pastor for me and ask him if I can stay on as a volunteer? And I was like, of course I would. I'd love to. And so I called the pastor of the cool church, and he's a super sweet guy. I'd met him before. There is no wonder why he had such a popular church and why all the cool kids went there. And we had this conversation, and I said, listen, I know people are on journeys and where they are in their life. And I said, where my buddy is in his life right now, he needs to be at your church. I'd love for him to come to my church. I'd love him to come back and work for me. He's a great guy. He's super cool. He knows what's down in the scene. He knows people. He's great. He's more extroverted than I am. I could use somebody like him, but he needs to be where you're meeting a need for him. But he's coming out and he knows that you don't agree with that, but can you just keep him anyway? Can you agree to disagree? Can you just give him that grace? I said, because this is where he needs to be. So as a pastor, and with all this experience and all this is someone who's worked for me, someone I've known most of my adult life. This is someone who needs to work with. And he said no. He said he couldn't. And I sat there and I cried. I cried and cried right in front of the pastor. Like, it was not like a professional meeting at this point. I was just heartbroken. Because that's what happens when you know where people need to be at a time in their life, in a story in their life, and when someone wants to be somewhere where they're not completely welcomed and still feel like they can't want to be there, and you're fighting for them to be welcomed there. That's I don't honestly know if I have even a reason. I guess the main reason for telling you that story is that, trusting people on their own journey when they don't need to necessarily be in your presence or with you. And unfortunately, that was not the case. And it didn't work out there. And he ended up not coming to work with me either. I think it was just such a devastating blow to him because of the church and how the church reacts and treats our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. It was really a bummer, to say the least. It was kind of devastating to me to see, like, everybody's welcome until they're not, I guess. But I've been there and done that. So that was really tough. I guess that makes me go back to the part in the golden rule out in Matthew 7, where it's, treat others how you'd want to be treated. Love others how you'd want to be treated. And so I always just had a staff of imperfect people, and I'm not saying being gay is imperfect, but I'm saying of people who had drinking issues and things like that, and we just talked about it. We communicated about it, If I would have not had anybody working with me if I had only people working for me that I agreed with 100%, or if I had people that didn't do things that worried me a little bit. But we had conversations, and we had tough conversations, and people knew where I stood and what we were talked about, if someone was struggling with alcohol, they knew I was in 12-step program. I wanted them to go to a 12-step program. That's things we dealt with and we talked about. So those are great moments where you don't have to clean the dust off your feet or move on or worried about being attacked. But problem is so often in churches, that's the feeling for people to be, like to live their truth, to live who they are. They feel that they're going to be mauled and torn apart. And that's unfortunate. But so that's, but like I said, maybe another day comes. Maybe that another day comes. Maybe God opens up another door. Maybe something happens. Or maybe you just find that you needed to be somewhere else. It's not an easy thing to live by. So I just want to make it clear is that I am saying that there are times where arguing well does not work. So I don't guarantee 100% anything works, So I want you to know that if there's times and there's people that you might have to say, this is going to happen. This is only time can figure this out. Only time can figure this one out. Try to be graceful with people who hold you as family and care about you. Like my dad's not talking to me right now, and it breaks my heart every day. I don't like it. So when I hear people like, well, I don't talk to my family because of political reasons, I'm like, if you really need that to do that, I understand. But I would tell you what, the pain of that goes both ways, and there could be a lot of pain for them as well. And you have to take that, maybe there's another way of saying, hey, well, let's agree not to talk about this stuff. I talked to a pastor or an ex-pastor the other day who said him and his father are so different politically and so different theologically, but they agreed not to talk about it. And then one day he brought it up. The father brought it up and he goes, hey, and the son said, I thought we agreed not to talk about this. He goes, well, we didn't talk about how long. And he goes, forever. And he goes, his dad said, okay. And he said, since that conversation, they've not had that talk. So there are ways to deal with these issues and this separation and these disagreeing well. And there's sometimes that say that we just can't even disagree well on this, so can we leave this out because we love each other more than this? That you're more important to me than politics. You're more important to me than my religious beliefs. That love is the trump card here. Is that possible? Now I'm going to hit you with something that I think that might be the cause of some of our stuff. And I was really struggling with if I wanted to use this verse or not, and if I wanted to bring this in, and if it even lined up. But I also like to take chances when I do stuff. So let's jump over to Luke for a minute. I'm going to be in Luke 18. If you're following in your Bibles, hear all those pages ruffling out there in the distance. No, I think I had it marked and then I bookmark fell out. There we go. So we're going to shift gears here. Shift gears with me. And we're going to shift into talking a little bit about pride. And what pride can look for and what pride can do. And that often the pride is the reason that the throwing the pearls, the swine attacks you. Often there's pride involved there. And often there's pride on our part of maybe if we keep going back and pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think sometimes I do that because I think, well, love says never give up, never lose faith. And so I keep pushing and not realizing that, hey, you got to allow some space. You got to allow for some time, Even in friendships where I've had disagreements with very close friends who I love and care about, and we've had disagreements, and we just had to take time. It was like we had to work it out in our own heads what was going on in order to really forgive each other and love each other and move on. And we had to kind of let the hurt sit and move and heal for a little bit. It was like this open wound, and we had to seal it closed and let it heal rather than continue to oh, let's look at it and figure out what this is and poke and poke and poke. No, we just had to close it for a little bit and then slowly, oh, okay, it's getting better. Start to reconnect. So in Luke 18:19, Jesus is telling a parable. When he told this parable, he also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. So Jesus is telling this to a group of people who regard themselves as righteous. We're right, I'm right living, I'm doing the right things, and saw contempt with others, like, well, you're not doing the right thing. So kind of a legalistic type of thing. I think we all can get caught up in this at times, where we look at others and go like, Like, ugh. Or even if we go like, oh, they're insane and they're horrible. And, often we're also telling ourselves, we forget how powerful our mind is. We're also telling ourselves we're good and we're not horrible and we're not judgmental. And we're so, we become self-righteous in a different way that, is not as apparent, but it's still there. That self-righteousness is still there. It's like, thank God I'm not that guy, I mean, I remember when I first got sober and was doing, and we'd all go out and everybody would be having beers and stuff like that. And there were like the old Assemblies of God tapes playing in my head about not drinking and all this stuff. Even though I didn't have a problem with people drinking, it was still like, I'm not drinking. You know what I mean? It was almost like, I'm glad I'm not those people. I don't need that to have a good time. You know what I mean? It was like this judgment came and like, at least I don't have to worry about someone coming in and seeing me doing something wrong. It was not about that. It wasn't about being sober. It wasn't about the bright. It was just about like, oh, my image, And so that's when self-righteousness kind of jumps in. And that's why virtue signaling drives me crazy sometimes, because I feel like it's that same thing, what we're going to talk about here. So he also told the parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. He says, 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, the thieves, the rogues, the adulterers, or even this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give 1/10 of all my income. So he's laying out, look at what I do, look at my good works, look at how I have it together. Thank God I'm not. What really sticks me is where he says, God, thank you that I am not like other people. As you may know, one of the things I don't like about scapegoating is just another word for othering. We really do like to other people, especially if they're othering us, and we do that a lot, especially in this hot political climate where everybody's just like losing their minds. We other. I mean, I know some of my friends who followed me for years during these political time, they back off. They don't want to be around me because they don't like what I say. They think it's too easy peasy or too gracie or too, I don't realize how bad things can get, and that's just not true. I do realize that, but I also realize my calling of grace and being a peacemaker and bringing it together and seeing my focus is a bigger picture. My focus isn't just this 4 years. It's what is time? What happens over time? Will we ever find peace? Will we be able to work together? Will the people ever be able to be the leaders and because there's more of us to be the leaders and the leaders follow us. That's kind of the hope. Will we be able to make a livable wage? Will we be able to live on on a easy, like a paid budget? Can we work one job? Can we work on that? Can we feed our kids? Can we afford our medication? Can we afford housing? Those are the types of things that I think about. And I think about that for everybody. I think about that for MAGA people. I think about that for liberal people. I think about that for gay people and straight people and black and white people. I think we all should be able to have that basic needs met in this country. And it would be a lot better of a place for us to have disagreements and not use fear or try to try to turn our convictions into laws. Literally laws. And that's what othering does. But so here he goes. He goes, thank God I'm not like the other people, thieves and rogues and adulterers, or even those tax collectors. And if you think about Paul Tillich, what Paul Tillich says is sin is separation. So he's being grateful that he's not like them and that he's separate from them. I fast twice a week and I give 1/10 of all my income. Now, I wouldn't mind having this guy come to Revolution and give 1/10 of all his income. We celebrate that. Kidding. I fast twice a week. I give all 1/10 of my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even look up to the heaven, was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted. And this is hard to say because we don't live in a very good time where humbleness has really been like a big cool thing, Everybody wants to live in their truth and live in their truth loud. And if you don't like it, then go to hell, And that's just not how I feel like we're supposed to. I don't think that gets us where we need to go as community, as human beings, as people who carry grace. Grace is reunion, okay? And that's Paul Tillich's concept. Grace reunites, sin separates. And so when we have to ask ourselves is, when is my pride getting in the way? When am I like this Pharisee? When am I the one who people can't come to because I might attack and devour them? You see what I'm saying? Have I become so liberal and so progressive that if someone is not thinking the same way I do and they come to me, I'm going to trample their pearls. I'm going to trample them. Because that's where you realize then they have to take time away from you because they can't have that conversation. So they can't argue well. You know, people that make me nervous when they come to talk to me don't look like the people who made me nervous 10 years ago to come talk to me. And then the people who 10 years ago who come talk to me made me nervous don't look like the people who were 10 years before that made me nervous and came to talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes the group that carry the most pride and the most hurt carry the most pride in some ways, because that's their defense mechanism, saying, see, I'm okay. And what I feel like most of us should be called to do is being like, hey, you are accepted. That nothing has to change. You are accepted. I mean, that's what's so powerful about grace being anarchy, is that it accepts everyone. And so it automatically says no one's out of touch. No one's beyond forgiveness. No one's beyond restoration. No one's beyond hope. And so when you have that concept, it's a little bit easier not to be so prideful or so arrogant or so afraid that somehow someone's opinion is going to change everything. I mean, think about the last time someone's opinion, your mind was changed by someone's opinion online. You know what I mean? Like, or by like your newspaper article. I mean, hopefully that helps, but usually I find reading books and reading philosophy helps me think differently, and having hard conversations with people really changes my mind more so than a hot take or someone being mad at me. I mean, if someone is mad at me and rejects me, I will think about it and I will go, why is this happening? But usually I'm going to be more open to that if they tell me why. If they go, hey, I don't like you because you're a tax collector, and because a tax collector can take more money than even the taxes are owed, and you scare me when I see you because I'm afraid you're going to take all my money and take all my things and hurt my family and hurt my children and hurt this. Like, had that been the conversation that this proud person was having with the tax collector, this really good tither, as we call him, it's a great church member, was having with the tax collector, then there might be more hope there. But really what happens is the tax collector comes out on top because he's humbled enough to like, my life is falling apart. I'm trying to do the right thing, but I don't know how to do the right thing. And how many people we don't know have those moments every day? And that's why I think disagreeing well and having conversations until you can't is important, because we don't know who's beating themselves up at night going like, I'm trying to do the right thing, but I can't. Like, I want to love more people. I remember when I met with Joel Osteen, I could tell that there was a pastor who wanted to be affirming of LGBTQ people, but he couldn't do it because of the peer pressure of his family and the people around him, and the fact that he was carrying millions of dollars of debt and all this stuff. And legalism won, religion won, finances, fear of tomorrow won. And unfortunately that happens. People become either caught up in fear and they can't stand up for what their convictions anymore because they're afraid it's going to cost them everything. And that's why the young rich ruler and the camp, you hear all these people are too afraid of that. They're too afraid of being judged. I mean, when I became an ally and set out revolution is affirming in 2005, 2006, that was the point. We lost everything. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that those fears aren't misguided, but sometimes people are afraid to pay the cost and pay the price of that. But because I said, eventually you're going to be on the wrong side of history. And he said to me, I keep telling them that, meaning the people that he runs his megachurch with. So we've got that. Life will humble you. Disagreeing with those who you thought were on your own side will humble you. Finances and living will humble you. I mean, there's a lot to keep us humble. And I don't think being humble should be a bad word. It doesn't mean that we're we're ashamed. Don't mix shame and humility together. I'm ashamed of who I am. No, you're just, hey, I'm humble. This is who I am, but I'm not going to have to, I'm not going to, and being realistic with ourselves is knowing like, hey, I do have faults. I have faults all the time. Like, man, if somebody says something really mean, or if I misread it as mean online, and I'm with my kids or something, and I've looked it down, or I start, and then I'm like, stop, breathe, Jay, calm down. You're letting your anger get the best of you. It's like all of a sudden I have like adrenaline in me, like I've got to set this right, And then I'll look back sometime. One time I'm like, what do you think about this? And they're like, that person is complimenting you. They like what you're doing. I'm like, no, they're not. And they're like, yes, they are. One time I spouted back at somebody and they were so shocked because they were trying to encourage me. We ended up DMing each other. And he goes, obviously we have a problem with each other. There's something wrong here, but I wasn't trying to say that. But obviously you're angry. And I said, yeah. And I said, I think it's from something that we talked about a longer time ago. And we ended up having a great conversation and reconciling and becoming friends, because I made a mistake. But it showed that there was some sort of hurt and pain that I was holding on to with that person that I was kind of hiding and I wasn't humble enough to admit. So I think being real with ourselves helps us to grow a little bit more, allowing that it's one take at a time, that sometimes we just got to stop and rest. I think that's part of humility as well. So anyway, I don't know. It's just easy to always think that we're in the tax collector's area. But nowadays, I think it's really easy to be into this area where to be the Pharisee in this story, where we think we do the right things. Because even on the left, we have our own type of purity culture. And that's where you see a lot of virtue signaling and a lot of like, I just recently did a talk where people are like, well, genuine Christians would never do such a thing like that, And even like these guys who are like humble and doing peacekeeping stuff and doing all this stuff, they don't realize that pride is sneaking in, that legalism is slipping in overnight, going like, it's probably sleeping in, coming in. But it's like all of a sudden now we're the, Hollywood agrees with me, corporations agree with me on Pride Month, and now look at you, and all of a sudden you don't realize like you're becoming the person who thinks that you have it all together and you've lost your humility. So I don't know, it's just something to think about. I know this isn't a great conversation, easy conversation. I know it's not easy to think about this stuff. It's not easy to stay humble in a world where you feel like that's giving up or that's showing weakness. Sometimes we see humility as weakness, but I think humility and being honest with yourself and knowing who you are is a great strength. It really allows you to, for me, to be a better parent, to be a better partner, to be a better friend. Knowing that, like, also like this stuff of like, okay, the pearl to swine. Now, there are people in my life who I love and care about, but there's certain pearls that I don't take to them because I know I know the answer I'm going to get. I know what's going to happen to those pearls if I bring them to that person. So this isn't just for enemy. This is for saying like, okay, I know that in this relationship, in this friendship, this is not where I take this to. I need to call this person or I need to call that person. I have two people that I really like for ministry-wise I go to have conversations with. One is Lawrence Richardson and the other one is my friend Tony Jones. And these people are very different. And very unique in perspective. And so, and it might be kind of like a mom, well, thank you very much for telling me that kind words. But sometimes you got to go to what, so sometimes I might go like, I'm going to get a bit easier touch over here with Lawrence, but not all the time. I go to Lawrence thinking like, well, Lawrence, and Lawrence like, man, what are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to say? Well, I don't, and so, but I keep these people who are a bit diverse and different in my life that I can bounce things off of and talk to for my work. That's for work stuff. And then I have people in my own life who I know like, hey, this, like if you're having this type of day, this person's not going to be able to understand it. So, as much as you wish they did, that's just not life. But you still love that person even though they can't deal with that, but that person's going to be in my life, just probably not for that stuff all the time. And who knows, maybe one day the relationship will grow to get there and I'll realize why that was not the place to go for a time. So, for a loner and a rebel, I sure do talk a lot about relationships and others and being together with people, don't I? This is where my hope lies, folks. So I hope it lies there with you too. I hope this gives you something to think about. When it's time to kind of let the dust off your feet go, and maybe not curse them like Sodom and Gomorrah, but move on. And just realize that there's certain perils for certain things, but also remember the golden rule is treating others as you'd want to be treated. And it gets really strange when you're treating others when they have a different personality type, and you have to learn how that personality type acts. Like, well, what if I was this personality type? How would I want to be reacted to? How do I want to be loved? So there you go. That's interesting. So that's today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoy doing this live when I can, and we do live and recorded, kind of keep the trolls guessing where we're at. But I love this community. I love you all. You are revolution. There is no revolution without you. Otherwise, I'm just talking to an overpriced phone. But don't forget to like and subscribe what we're doing here. That really does help. So here's the ins and outs of it. If you love our work, we do need your support. I have to kick this off at the end of everything. I hate that I have to do this, but that's just where we're at right now. I will let you know, I just applied for a school job, being a teacher's assistant to special needs kids, and I really hope I get it. My ex helped me write out everything and put the letter together, letterhead and everything. And sorry, I'm so nervous I forget my words sometimes. So I'm doing that, but we need to raise, about $2,500 by August 8th, I think, to keep everything moving and going, to get all our bills paid and to get payroll and all that. So if you can do that, that would be great. We really, I'm not asking one person to do that, but that's where we're at, and we need to do that. Well, yeah. Well, and the thing with working with special needs kids is that in high school, I was in learning strategies or special ed because I had really severe dyslexia, and I still have really severe dyslexia, which makes writing job applications really difficult. That's why my ex-wife helped me with that. Well, I want to stay with Revolution. The first year, I think, would be full-time, so that's going to make things a little bit harder. But it would be something where I would hopefully be able to come back for part-time with them and continue to do Revolution. But how we continue to do Revolution is by your support. And you can go to revolutionchurch.com, and we have Venmo, and we have PayPal, and you can donate through that. If you would like to donate with a check, the old school way, you can DM me either at Revolution, any of the Revolutions, really pretty much, but mostly like on Instagram is where I look at the DMs. And I'll give you an address where you can send that, and I'll deposit it on your behalf. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I would love to be with special needs kids because I'm very sensitive. I love kids. I've always loved kids. I love my own kids, but I love kids. And yeah, growing up in that, it was, it felt ostracizing as a kid. I remember people would be like, why are you going into that class? And being embarrassed. And I'd like to be able to be that teacher, because this guy's awesome and learns differently and is going to be a freaking super duper artist and probably going to change the world. That's why they're going to this class. Now, why don't you get to class, Mr. Billy Bragg? All right, folks. Thank you, and thank you for your support. Thank you for the likes and the follows and all that stuff. And have a great week. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your kind words that I see coming up on the YouTube screen. Just so you guys listening on the podcast know who I'm talking to. Thank you all so much. I am excited about it. Fingers crossed. I'll let you know if I get it or if I don't. And I'll keep working towards that. So love you all very much. Have a fantastic week. Take care of each other. And please don't spoil Wolverine or Deadpool. I haven't seen it yet. So, be nice to those of us who have lives that don't let us get to movie theaters right away. And be good to each other. And walk in grace and humility. Thank you so much. Love you all so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.